God has disciplined me a lot, and that I think being a part of the worship team, if I knew how like exposing and convicting it would have been, it'd probably have taken me a longer time.
Hi everyone, welcome back to the Purpose Report. I'm so excited that you all tuned in again this week, and I'm so excited to share with you all the special guests that we have today. So let's get into the episode. On today's episode, we have Chidera Olalere. She is from Osun State, Nigeria, and she is a fourth-year biochemistry and forensic science major here at Syracuse. So welcome, Chidera.
Hi everyone.
So I am excited to have you on today. Just like a little bit about kind of how we met. I met her at a salt company, which is like a college ministry, a part of the church that we both attend. And yeah, we went to fall retreat together, so kind of got to see a little bit of her at fall retreat, and just excited to share her story and how the Lord has been moving in her life. So we're going to start with 2 icebreaker questions first. The first one is, what is your favorite like Nigerian dish?
So like mainstream, I would say jollof rice.
Yeah.
But for those who know, I would say ewedu soup and any swallow to go with that, for those who know.
Okay. And then the second question is, what's one thing that God has showed you this week?
That does not feel like an icebreaker question. I think something I've just been reminded of is when I see things in people that I really admire, to look to imitate those things instead of feeling jealous or just like, oh, I don't have those things, or I'm not like that, but seeing those as qualities that can be imitated instead. Like
we mentioned, you being from Nigeria, what kind of led you out of all universities to be at Syracuse?
I feel like it's pretty common back at home to go abroad for university and then come back or stay afterwards. So it was on my mind, the potential of going abroad. And then my mom knew someone whose kid had come to Syracuse and they'd had a good experience. So that's why it was on my mind. Yeah. And then it had specific things I was looking for in a university, but I started thinking about it because my mom knew someone who'd come here.
Oh, okay, cool. Do you know the person who she just is like, yeah, somebody? Yeah. Okay. Well, do you think the transition has been good, kind of like what you thought it would be, knowing you wanted to be abroad?
I don't think I really had a lot of expectations or an idea of what I thought it would be, but I don't think the transition was super hard. I remember I came in early. I remember walking across campus with my GPS, trying to find where the bus stop was, and just feeling at home.
Oh, so, good.
Yeah, I think the transition was pretty good.
So when you first came, how did you go about finding community?
I'd say my first place of community was really my freshman roommate. She was a huge blessing for me. Yeah. On the portal, you're searching for random roommates, but they give you the portal to try to get to know people a little bit more, so it feels less random. And I remember it was a last minute decision for me to put, I'm a Christian on there. And I was like, I'm just going to chase everyone that could possibly have wanted to room with me away. But then she texted me back immediately. She's like, hey, I'm a Christian too.
Yes.
And that was really all that we used to become roommates. But it was amazing. And we're still friends now. And I think she was has been a primary source of community for me. But I'd also say the church that I joined, that's where most of my friends, most of my mentors have come from.
And so when you first came, you joined you joined Radiant first, and then you found Salt, right?
Well, it was more like the director of Salt Company had reached out to me and said there was a college ministry that they were starting up. And then they told me there was also it was a part of a church. Oh, okay. So I guess I'd heard about the college ministry first. Oh, okay. And then got plugged into the church. Oh, good.
With Salt, how has that new community been a place where you've been able to stay connected in the midst of college?
I'd say it's both been great and challenging. Coming into college, I was coming from a place where I really knew no other Christians. Yeah. So I was really eager to find Christian community coming into college, and wanted to go to church in person because I hadn't done that for years before coming here, and wanted to have like people my age that were following Jesus. So having that college ministry from the very beginning felt like a huge answered prayer. These are all these people that are your age that are wanting to follow Jesus. Like, no one's making any of us be here on a Thursday night at 8 p.m., which feels later and later as I go on. But anyway, so it was a huge answered prayer for that, just having more people my age, and especially in a school and in an environment that isn't Christian, having people that I knew are just makes me feel a little less alone. But I also think growing in my faith has also meant facing some places of community that I kind of shied away from previously. Just being more intentional, being more honest, being more vulnerable. And that's something I think I've learned a lot in community in college, but it's definitely been challenging.
How was kind of like your journey of community back home? And did that kind of look the same, or like how did it differ, if it did?
I wouldn't say I had, at least what I consider Christian community to be now. I don't think I had that for a very long time. Even when I did at home, I grew up in a very Christian space. I would say Nigeria is very religious. Everyone would say they're Christian or like they're Muslim, depending on what their parents are. Everyone is used to going to church, and I went to a boarding school where everyone had to go to church or to like a Muslim service or to the Catholic service. So everyone was in one of those spaces, and I think because of that there was just a lack of joy. And when there was joy, it was more because the music was good, less because we were all like excited to be in the presence of God and worshiping together. So that's kind of the space I grew up in. And then when I was 13, I went to this church camp back home, and it was the first time I saw people my age that seemed happy in this space where they were hearing about Jesus and worshiping Jesus. And I didn't feel that way, but seeing other people feel that way, it opened my eyes to the fact that it was possible to have that experience. I've probably given my life to Jesus like 1,000 times across my life, but I think that was one of the key moments for me where it was like, okay, I want this to be real for me. And then coming back to boarding school where everyone is the same, no one still really wants to be there, but I'm like, I want to be here. But battling the fact that I felt really alone in that, and it's like I don't want to seem too much because everyone else just showed up, but also not wanting to hide when I now have this greater desire to be close to Jesus. And I'd say towards the end of my time at that boarding school, I started making some other friends that were kind of on the same journey. But then I went to another school where there were no Christians. So I'd say coming into college, I just knew I wanted to be around more Christians. I had a certain level of vulnerability with my friend of that first school, but kind of rebuilding that again with people I don't really know, space I don't really know. So I think it was very different before in the sense that I didn't really have it.
You talked about like it being like a different experience as far as like joy, about like how did you now navigate that space where it's like, okay, I feel this new joy about being here, but I also don't want to be or seem like this like on a pedestal or like thinking you're kind of better or whatever it may be, like just because you know that you now have a different experience. How did you navigate that? Like how did you wrestle with the Lord? Like I want to be here, but I'm like nervous about being like perceived this kind of way. Like how did you wrestle with that?
So honestly, I don't think I have anything super inspiring to say about how I navigated that. I think I hit a lot, and I kind of just did the bare minimum with everyone else, and I was there and I didn't feel good about it. But the alternative to me seemed so much scarier than just staying in the same place where everyone else was. And until kind of the end of my time at that school, where my relationship with Jesus kept on growing, but honestly I had other friends that were in the same place, I would say until then I didn't really feel the freedom to, we're talking about like church, right? So things just like singing or closing your eyes or God forbid raising your hand, things like that I was terrified of doing because people around me, like these girls would kind of clap, they'd kind of sway from side to side, guys dead silent, they're just staring at you. So I was terrified of doing anything that felt more than the status quo of just like clapping, and honestly until I had friends doing that with me, I wasn't really doing it either. So nothing super inspiring to say about how I navigated that. I think I just hid a lot.
Now you're like singing in the choir at church, like very different than before, not wanting to do like any extra? What kind of led to that moment where you not only wanted to be in the church but also like serve and boldly, like you're in the choir, you're not like just greeting people at the door and like they may not see, but you're like in front singing? Like what kind of led to that move?
So I think just over the course of my life, music has had a very special role to play in my relationship with Jesus, in my experience of Jesus, my understanding of his character and nature and what he's done for me. So I think it's always had a special place in my life. And in my old schools, I was singing. Me and my siblings were in the choir. So I think that had mentally always been in my mind. Even at the church that I'm talking about, where everyone only clapped, like I would sing there too. It was a lot less like you're gifted for worship ministry and more like you have a good voice and we need people to sing on a Sunday. So you can meet this need that we have. So I think it was very different. I think I was kind of still in that headspace. I was like, I'm glad to be in Christian community in college. I still like to sing in the worship team. And in my mind, that's all I was really thinking about. And I think God has disciplined me a lot. And that I think being a part of the worship team, if I knew how like exposing and convicting it would have been, it'd probably have taken me a longer time to join the team. And so I'm kind of glad of the ignorance, I guess. And just like, okay, let's just start. I think in a sense it's like, yeah, you're like up on stage now singing in front of all of these people, when like in high school you could barely even close your eyes in the back row and full of people. But I think like that pride is something that's been present for a lot of my life, that God has been revealing to me more and more in recent times. And I think especially when you are on a stage in front of people, it's even more revealed. Because I'm not, who am I hiding from God? Like if all of my thoughts are, how do I look? How do I sound? Like what do they think of me when I do this, when I do that? Does this seem super spiritual? Does this seem like super cool and natural and impressive? Like God knows that I'm thinking all. And I think I had to reckon with myself and the fact that that's where majority of my thoughts were. And so God did give me the confidence to step out and do those things. But now that I'm doing them, my head is still up in what people are thinking. So I'd say very, very, very ongoing, but very long journey to get to the place where I'm doing those things. And it is natural, but constantly reminding myself that, hey, this is God that we're singing to. And as much as I want to lead the room in a certain way, it means nothing if my heart isn't focused on God, and he can tell that. Even if to everyone else it looks like this super beautiful spiritual thing, like God can tell. So I'd say getting there, it was me just being like, I like to sing, here's an opportunity to sing, and that's how it started. But even getting to the place where I could raise my hands, getting to the place where I can do that now and be more focused on God, I think it's just a lot of my personal wrestle with God, that he would be the most important thing to me. And that, you know, raising my hands, like sometimes it feels natural, but sometimes it's like we're speaking about surrendering to God, and this is a way I can express that. So whether it feels like the cool thing, whether I'm the only person in the room doing it, like this is what I'm going to do. And as a worship leader, then you're setting that tone for other people. So sometimes it's like, yeah, like my hands are tired, but like this is, I think, is what expresses this song better, is more honoring to God and leads the people better. So I think just a long journey of dying to self, that is the Christian walk. But I'd say even especially in being on stage, just making sure my heart is in the right place.
And how has community been able to kind of like keep you accountable, like when you're trying to acknowledge the Lord and like all the things that you're doing? How has community played a role in making sure like that you're living a life to die to yourself and following Jesus?
Yeah, I think a lot of it starts with confession. You know, community can't hold you accountable to what they don't know, struggling with. And I'd say that's one of the greatest things SALT has done for me, just getting me into a culture and a habit of confession. And it still feels awful every single time. I still feel reluctance and hesitation every single time. But I also feel more of a burden to share now. Where in the past it's like, oh, like God knows we're kind of handling this, no one else needs to know. Now it's like, okay, I know God has forgiven me, but like these people that care about me and know I've struggled should know that I like slipped up. So just feeling more of a burden towards that. And again, it's all the cliche things that people say, but it includes all the things that you really don't want to tell anyone. You don't have to tell everyone. I'm a big proponent of like, really not everyone needs to know. Lots of people don't need to know, but a few do need to know so that they can hold you accountable. And I think pride more recently has been taking up more of the bulk of my confessions, just speaking to how much I do care and think about what people are thinking of me. Just like this obsession with myself that, you know, isn't healthy, isn't helpful, isn't joyful for me, but also isn't honoring to God, doesn't help me love anyone well. So I think it feels super ugly, you know, but that's what I've been confessing a lot more recently. And yeah, I think it just helps me be more aware that this is something I'm struggling with, and just taking those thoughts captive when they come, not sitting in them, lingering in them.
How do you think through that, how has the Lord shown you that like he matters most, like pleasing him matters most?
I think it's impossible to go through the Bible and not come away with that understanding, but even in my attempts to please people around me and put together this perfect reputation for everyone to see and try to meet everyone's expectations of me or be the glue that holds everything together, like I've witnessed and experienced how exhausting that is. How I always disappoint myself, or always disappoint the people around me, or they always fail to live up to my expectations. I'm putting them in an awful place by being like, I'm actually studying every facial expression you make to see if you're like pleased with me, so I can feel how unsatisfying that is. And I think at the core, from reading the Bible, from walking with Jesus, but I think just even so deep, we know that people can't do that for us, and we know that only God can satisfy us in that way. And so I think I definitely have the head knowledge, but over the last few years, just coming to truly believe that not only is Jesus from like a factual standpoint the one that can satisfy me, but he delights in satisfying me and making my life full so that I can love people and do all these things he's given me the opportunity to do from a joyful place, instead of actually my entire sense of self is tied to how this goes. So I think the journey for me has been coming to really believe that and live every day like I already have that like wholeness in Jesus.
And a part of like acknowledging, as we talk about like how you go through these cycles of like overthinking a lot of different situations, how do you try to like stay focused on like things above in the midst of like even like everyday stuff? Like how are you acknowledging him in like all of your ways, going to school, class, talking to your professors? Like how do you acknowledge him like on campus?
I think a lot. I'm realizing I think a lot of it beforehand is just praying over everything. I normally like pray over my day, but especially recently, just praying over how I might represent God well in the spaces I'm in, like recognizing the classes I'm going to walk into, the student orgs I'm going to be meeting with, where where it feels very difficult to be a Christian. And acknowledging those spaces with God beforehand and saying like, hey, if there's opportunities, if there's openings, give me the courage to walk through them, but also give me such a joy and enthusiasm in the gospel that instead of it being like, oh my gosh, I have to do this, I get to do this. That's where I want my heart to be. And so talking to God beforehand, that when those opportunities come, that's where my posture would be. And then throughout the day, and this is something I've been trying to work on a lot, just trying to stay close to God, trying to be connected. I think I find it very easy to kind of go through my day and just doing the things I need to do. And then I come home and it's like, oh God, I haven't spoken to you since 9 a.m. this morning, before I left the door. So whether it's reading the Bible or listening to worship music, which honestly for me, I feel like I listen to worship music so much that it almost doesn't always register. That's what I'm listening to. But or reading something, or praying, or talking to someone about Jesus, just doing those things to keep myself grounded throughout the day, so I'm constantly in the place of considering what is pleasing to God, just being connected to him. And when I am in those spaces, when I am in those classes, I think especially recently it's been like when I'm talking to someone that's a Christian, talking about God isn't something I even think about. It's something that just comes naturally. And then when I'm talking to someone who I don't know is a Christian, or I don't know what they think, it's like I'm tailoring the advice I'm giving. It's still kind of godly principles, but maybe without mentioning God. And I'm just trying to do less of that. Be genuinely who I am all the time. And I've just been praying a lot that like the gospel and the Bible, like that would be the only advice I have to give to anyone. So I think just looking for ways to be who I am in private with Jesus and be who I am in a room of Christians with everyone all the time.
we talked about when, like before, how a lot of people in Nigeria, they kind of go to different religions just because of their upbringing. What kind of like led you to like not be a Christian or try to be a Christian, like from your parents, but like what led to your personal surrender?
Yeah, I would say it's really that church camp where I went for the first time, and people for the most part were there because they wanted to be, and they all just seemed so joyful to be there, and it just helped me realize that there was another way to experience Christianity, because I'd gone to all the Sunday schools and youth or like teen church services on Sunday. I could probably give all the correct answers to things, and I believed in God, but my desire to have that personal relationship day in, day out wasn't really there. And I think what that camp did for me is that it created that desire. There is more to life than whatever it is I had been living before. So I'd say it was that catalyzed it.
How have you been able to like not grow weary when wanting to live a life that pleases God, but the temptation of school or just like life around you might just be very tempting and sometimes even enticing, because people make the world life look like very fun and very all these different things. How have you been able to stand firm and not grow weary?
I don't think I always have. I think that's how it started. I don't think I always have like stood firm and haven't like tried the things of the world, but I think similarly to what I was saying before about when I do put my hope in people, it falls short. And it's easy to live in a spiral constantly where you know those things won't give you the satisfaction you need, but it's all you know, so you keep going back, or for that like moment of satisfaction it gives you, you keep going back. But I think in the moments where I really encountered God, whether it's in private or at church or in camp, it's inviting people in those moments and saying like, hey, this is what I'm struggling with. This is what feels hardest to bring to God. This is what makes me feel like I feel like I have to handle things on my own. Inviting people into those moments, making big decisions in those moments, but also just, I think for me, really sitting myself in the truth of who God is and the life that he wants me to have, and holding firm to that. And I think you need people to remind you. You need people to walk with, to remind you that life with Jesus is better than life with the world, because it can be easy to forget, especially when you're so deeply in your day in, day out grind and the point seems very far away. So you need people to remind you. I think you need to like be in the Bible, listen to sermons or worship music. Something I've been hearing a lot about is finding the things that stir your affection for God and doing more of those things, because it is very easy to get caught up in the mundane things and lose that joy. Not even because you're so deeply in the world, but it's just easy to get so caught up in the mundane things and lose sight of why it is a privilege to get to follow Jesus. And that's something I felt a lot coming out of fall retreat. I wouldn't say like going in I was feeling like so heavy laden in my Christian walk, but I know I came out just being refreshed in the privilege that it is to follow Jesus. And so even things like that, but having things in your day-to-day that stir up your affection for Jesus and doing more of those things. For me, I love spending time with good friends and talking about Jesus, or I love reading a good book. And that stirs my affection for Jesus. So just knowing what those things are and trying to do them more and make more time for them.
And speaking of fall retreat, because I feel like a part of it, like towards the end, that night before we left, that Saturday night, I had like this whole moment, and you came over and like prayed, and I don't remember like all of the stuff that you were saying, but one thing I know that I walked away with was how much like authority you had like in your prayer, and so I just think like that, like to understand like how much authority you have over like the lies of the enemy. How do you think, or what kind of has reminded you of the authority that you have over the enemy, and that like he is a liar and that he cannot like overtake you?
I think I currently come from a family of just very intense Christians. And they're becoming very intense. My mom and my sister specifically, like some of the conversations I have with my sister, I'm like, whoa, we need to like slow this down for the baby Christian in me. But I think they really give me a different, deeper, especially my sister, a deeper perspective on things. And just remembering that as much as we're facing things in like a physical sense day to day, there's a very real like spiritual battle that we're fighting and need to be aware of. And I think she always keeps me in check with that. But I think also just my memory of that night, a lot of the things I was praying are things that, parts of the Bible that I was memorizing a lot this summer. And those are the things that were just coming to mind. And so I think the Bible just has so much great material for our prayers. For sure. And honestly, in my day-to-day, I don't know how much I pray those things, but it's the truth. And I find, especially when I find myself believing lies, things that I know are not true, but cycles I find myself repeating over and over, like clinging to the Bible, whether it's in my day-to-day or in my prayers, that's always a good spot for me. Like, this is the truth. We know this is the truth, and maybe it doesn't feel like the truth, but if we know it is the truth, then we can speak it over ourselves and cling on to it. And I've been thinking about that a lot, like the authority we have over the enemy, especially because a lot of my like fight with sin is in my mind. And just thinking to the Bible and the places where God says, like, where Jesus says that he's given us the authority to dismantle strongholds of the enemy and hold our thoughts captive to obey Jesus. And it's like, I've tried. It doesn't feel like I have that capacity. But he says we do. And so clinging to that, clinging to the fact that we do have this authority, and using it instead of coming into those, at least for me, those fights with my thoughts, feeling like, oh, this is actually inevitable. Like, I can try, but I really have limited power. No, God has given me authority to control this completely. And maybe I'm learning how to walk in that authority, but it's something that I have. So I think, honestly, the Bible, just reading it and like believing the things that Jesus has said about us are true.
I know a lot of people, when they think of like sin or all these different things, is like outwardly things, or like physical or sexual, like all of those things, but not as much as like how, because I feel like we're all made differently, and so I feel like everyone's is not going to look the same. So for someone whose thoughts really go like with their mind, which is where a lot of the battle is, how have you been able to find Jesus within, and knowing like he doesn't only care about the physical things that I'm doing, but also like he also cares about my mind, and he also wants me to feed my mind healthy things and not poison, where it will like lead me away from him. How have you been able to like know Jesus also cares about my thoughts?
Well, there's a lot of Bible verses that talk about it. They were talking about it in church recently, the pastor. It's one of those really long songs. It's probably the longest. I don't remember which one it is. But talking about how, you know, before we were born, like God formed us. Before a word is on my lips, like you know it. And I was kind of thinking that means before the thought is fully formed in my mind, like you know what it's going to be as well. And so just thinking about the fact that God knows what those things are. And for me, it was more like thinking about like he has control and authority over those things. So if they don't please him, like he's able to help me put them to death. So there's that. But also thinking about parts of the Bible where it talks about like whatever you do for the glory of the Lord. And there's no reason to think that our thoughts would kind of be exempt from that. And maybe you can't control when the thought first pops into your mind, but you can control like how long it stays there. And then the verse I was talking about before that says we can control those things. Like he has given us everything we need to live a godly life. And so I kind of repeat those things to myself, especially when it feels like I have no power and control. It's like, I do. And maybe I'm not used to exercising that power and control to kill this thing that feels so familiar to me. But I can. Like, that's something God has given me the power to do. And he talks about, you know, dwelling on what's pure, what's holy. These are like anchor verses. The battle is always in my mind. It's like, hold on to what is good, what is pure, what is worthy of being thought of. And it's so God, like, it's spoken to directly in the Bible that our thoughts matter. I think a lot of the things we see, a lot of those outward things start with our thoughts, whether we actively know that we've given so much room to those things or not. And I think the more attention we pay to our thoughts, the more, you know, humbled I think we'll be, just as the messiness that we sometimes allow into our lives. But the Bible is also really clear that we have a lot of authority in Jesus over our thoughts, as chaotic as they can feel.
What are some decisions or other just like temptations of school that you have been like needing to lean on the Lord for?
I think for me, at least the things I've been super aware of have been more mental battles than physical things that people can see, specifically with like lustful thoughts, especially because I do read a lot. And so it was really easy to get into the world of books that are a lot more like explicit sexually, and just get really caught up in that world. And it's so easy to fall into, I think, but that's where my struggle has been for a really long time. And I don't think it's better or worse than things that are physically evil, but I think it presents specific difficulties, because where like someone might be able to see you drunk and say like, oh, that's a problem you have, or someone might know about your sexual relationships and say like, oh, that's a problem you have. I think this is something that's really easy to hide unless you own up to it and say like, hey, this is something I'm struggling with, this is something that I'm actively having to fight every single day and not winning most days. And I think that was one of the hardest things for me to confess to anyone. So the idea of doing this is insane to me, and I'll probably go back to my room today and question, wow, I can't believe I did that. But I think it's really easy to hide things like that. And what a lot of people have told me as I've learned to confess sin is just how much sin thrives in the dark. And it's like, I want to fix it myself, like God knows we can fix it between the two of us. But it also means like when you slip up, there's no one to kind of hold you accountable or like walk with you through that. So you either sit in the shame of that alone, or you're able to brush it off because you're alone. And when you also find victory, you're celebrating that alone, and it's also really easy to be like, oh, I did that. And again, I don't think everyone needs to know, but having a few people that are holding fast to the Lord, that can walk with you, hold you accountable, pray for you, celebrate with you when you experience victories, like grieve with you when you experience slip-ups, like that's incredibly important. And it doesn't feel good to share, but I think the fruit of it is worth it. So I'd say that has been a pretty major place that I've just been leaning on God a lot for. And I'd say I am seeing a lot of just like victory that I never thought was possible even just a few months ago. So that, and just a lot of pride, and honestly a lack of boldness regarding my faith, just hiding a lot, leaning away from very clear opportunities I've had to share the gospel or point to Jesus, and just caring a lot more about what people think of me and what they might be able to do to me than what maybe God is opening up the doors for me to do. Something we spoke a lot about in fall retreat was how, we're ambassadors of Christ. And part of that means that our life's goal is to deliver the message He's given us. And like, I suck as an ambassador of Christ. Like I'm like bottom rung. You need to go back to school, like train us from the start. But I've just been convicted of that a lot, and seeing all those places where it feels super hard to be a Christian, even where I feel nervous, and it's like, okay, I am nervous, I am scared, this is still worthwhile, this is still good to do. So just praying that I would care more about the mission God has and that He's invited me into than I do about being comfortable and doing what's familiar for me. But that's a very current struggle.
How do you think being in community and knowing that healing and transformation not only comes from your relationship with God, but how he talks about also confessing and stuff brings healing, and you need another person. How have you been able to see the fruit of that when you're like, while I just confessed some really hard things that I'm facing, and then seeing how the need of that other person was necessary?
I think having other people, because I guess I don't know what I really thought would happen when I confessed to people, that they'd be like, you were
by your head.
I don't know what I thought people would do, but just being met with love, and I guess I did expect some level of rejection, just reminded me this is how God responds to you. The sin, whatever it might be, isn't okay, but you've brought it into the light. You're turning away from it, ready to turn away from it. Maybe you need some help, but you're ready to turn away from it. And that heart of repentance is something that God doesn't turn away from. And the people that he sent into my life haven't turned away from that either. But even more, it's even deeper intimacy and friendship, because they know me more. And I'm not hiding this part of my life. Everyone I would consider to be close to me. So I think just being met with their love reminded me of the love of Jesus. really enriches your friendships with people, but also seeing other people that feel more, I don't know if confidence is the word, because again, I think it still kind of sucks on some levels, but I think seeing the people around me feel maybe the freedom to share as well, because like someone was vulnerable with what felt awful for them to share. And so just seeing other people maybe feel freedom to share, and I think that has really encouraged me a lot, even when I don't feel like sharing. It's always good to bring this to the light, but also think about who else in this room has really heavy things they need to share that would never share if they feel like everyone is keeping it super secret.
Do you think like you found all that within Salt, or has there been other avenues here on campus or even back home or other parts of your life where you've been able to find people and community as well?
I'd say there's definitely some people from home in my family that I've been able to, I think, go deeper with as well. But a lot of the people I would say I did meet at Salt, and we formed friendships out of Salt. I'd say a lot of the deepening maybe happened outside of Salt, but I met them at Salt.
When we talked about before, you was like you've given your life to Jesus like so many different times. How have you been able to always know Jesus is the answer?
Again, I think I've just tried other ways and they don't satisfy. I also think for me there just feels like a deep written truth in my heart that Jesus is the answer. So you can go to all these other places, and you have, and you've seen what that experience is, and Jesus is the answer. I think he's a harder answer, but a truer, like if the goal is peace and joy and satisfaction and security, which ultimately is the goal, is what I want, then Jesus is the only place I'm going to find that in a lasting way. And like people complimenting me feels good, and people thinking I'm great feels good. People paying me attention feels good, but all of it fades away. All of it changes just as quickly as it came. You know, what God thinks about me isn't hidden, isn't changing day to day. It's the only firm thing to build my life on. So I think just reminding myself of that before I find myself in a place where I'm feeling tempted, like reminding myself of that. And I find that if I'm reminding myself of that constantly, then when I'm tempted to turn to something else, it's just as natural for me to remind myself of that again.
And when you say like Jesus he can be a harder answer, what kind of like stirs in your heart that knows like, yes, maybe this calling or this life with Jesus is harder, but like it's worth it, like you still don't want the easier way, which would be the world?
I think also just like looking at the example of people in the Bible, I'd say personal experience is a great teacher. It might be a lot easier to do this thing like with some of my friends, people that I work with. Maybe it's easier to laugh about this joke that they're making about getting blackout drunk this weekend and like brush it off, and that might be the more comfortable thing to do in that situation. The harder thing to do, which I wouldn't say I've graduated to express discomfort with it or to blatantly like suggest a different option, that's the harder thing to do. But I also know it's the better thing to do. Or maybe some show, like it's not bad, it's funny, all the things. So maybe it's not necessarily doing harm, but maybe it does also have some things that make my spirit feel uneasy, or it's distracting me ultimately. Maybe the problem isn't even the show itself. Maybe it's just that right now I said I would read my Bible, and instead I'm watching this. And it's like the harder thing to do is go choose to read my Bible. But it's also the more fruitful thing at the end of the day. So I think a lot of it is that mind over matter, like dying to our flesh. Like, these things might feel good, and maybe they're not even necessarily bad, but maybe there's something more important, maybe there's something better that I could be doing right now. I think as I've been walking with Jesus, and I was praying about it this morning, that okay, I kind of have a grasp of what is sinful, and we're still kind of working to kill those things, but even more now, not just what's allowed, what's okay, but what is honoring God, what is building my relationship with Jesus, more than just, okay, this isn't absolutely wrong, so maybe it's okay, but more of what's actually good, what's honoring Jesus. And those are sometimes the harder choices to make, but just praying that I learn to enjoy them, but that even before I enjoy them, that I would choose those things, whether it's in interactions with people or just in private.
What encouragement would you give to someone who deals with a lot of shame or feels disappointment from the Lord?
I would say that I felt that a lot, and depending on whether you're around Christians or not, maybe you've heard what I'm about to say a lot, but let me be another voice in the darkness shouting it out. God knew everything there was to know about you when he created you, and when Jesus died on the cross for sin, it wasn't just for some general random sin out there. It's for those specific things that you're struggling with right now. And so I know for me, the tendency is to hide from people, hide from God, try to fix it on my own, thinking that's what's expected from me or needed for me to even show Jesus that I'm serious about my sin. But Jesus delights in walking with you through those things. And while sin isn't okay and it's not something to just be brushed under the rug, like Jesus already knows what those things are. He died for those things, not so that you could feel you need to hide them from him, but so that you would come to him when you're struggling with those things. You have no strength in and of yourself to fix those things yourself, but God is wanting to show himself strong for you. So lean in, come to Jesus, draw in some other people that you can trust that can walk with you in those things. But the most important thing is to draw near to Jesus because he drew near to you.
So what are you doing on purpose daily? So day to day, what are you doing purposely?
I'm trying to wake up a little earlier and establish a clear morning routine that gives me the time to do all the things.
And then what are you doing on purpose for life?
Something I've been doing more of this semester and that I just want to do more of this year is invest more in people. And so meeting up with my own friends more regularly just so we can sharpen each other, but also just the people around me, especially freshmen that I've been getting to meet in the last couple of months, meeting up with them more, just hopefully getting to encourage them and point them to Jesus.
Yeah. Well, thank you for coming on to the podcast today. I really enjoyed just our conversations and just hearing about what the Lord is doing. I'm always interested in how the Lord is also working in the people around me and being encouraged by it. So thank you for coming on the podcast today. Hi everyone, thank you all for tuning in to today's episode, and I can't wait to see you all on the next one. Peace.